ended.
Welcome back to another post-game edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Alec Crouthamel, and special guest, David Anderson. Guys, Rutgers is down by Washington 38-19 in another frustrating display of just the most sadist hobby that anyone can have is being a Rutgers sports fan. I think we all kind of felt in our bellies that this wasn't going to go well when we failed to capitalize on multiple opportunities in the first half. And those sure did end up biting us because the defense by the end of the game was out of gas and the offense was just far too stodgy, especially when we got it into the red area to really have a realistic chance of winning this game. David, what's kind of your high level thoughts on kind of the fight the team showed and kind of where this places us the rest of the season?
I think they played hard for the most part. On both sides of the ball, it was more just it felt like every key play, Rutgers was a day late, a dollar short on both sides. I mean, you'd have like a 3rd and 8, and then a Washington receiver would be running with nobody within 10 yards of him. Or conversely, Rutgers would be, let's say it would be like a 3rd and short, and they'd run it figuring there's only 4 guys in the line of scrimmage. We got to get this. And you saw that a lot late in the game where it was like, it almost felt like Washington was conceding those runs and Rutgers still wasn't getting first downs at the clip they needed. And it felt like that was more what was happening than lack of effort. I mean, I didn't see I mean, sure, maybe late things got a little late, and kind of uninspired. But for most of this game, Rutgers was the more passionate team when you talk top to bottom. Maybe a couple guys in Washington were playing with passion, but Rutgers was the team that was bringing the energy more. I felt, but it was just unlike the previous 2 games where it wasn't necessarily lack of quote talent or speed. That was evident in this game in key spots.
Alec, how about you? High level thoughts on how this one played out?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the lack of execution, like David says, the lack of execution in key spots. Um, I mean, they had so many drives that just felt like they were moving, and then when I said this at halftime, when the quarters got close, when you're in the red zone, they just didn't have any answers, and it seemed like they were just able to. Washington was just able to really just do whatever it wanted defensively, and then offensively, it was only a matter of time till the floodgates kind of broke free. I didn't think it would happen as drastically as it did. Their first 2 scoring drives in the 3rd quarter lasted a combined 3 minutes and 7 seconds. But, I mean, it was only a matter of time, and Damon Williams, I mean, he's just extremely talented. They bottled up Jonah Coleman relatively well, but Williams was absolutely he was unstoppable in the passing game. And this was after a first half where things were really not going Washington's way. They were beating themselves. That's the most frustrating part about, this type of loss is Washington did not play nearly a perfect game either. They had penalties, they had missed opportunities, they missed a field goal in the opening drive. So just the uh the lack of execution again in those key spots. We've been saying this 3 weeks in a row now, or 3 games in a row, 4 weeks in a row. Uh, it has to change. I mean, just they're not able to come through situationally. And again, the defense, like David said, they played inspired. And I really like the way that they played, especially in the first half, but just were not able to get the stops that they needed. Um, in the second half late. They weren't able to get really any stops in the second half. I don't even know if they got a single stop in the second half. They were outscored 28-6 in the second half, 21-6 in the 3rd quarter alone. I mean, looking at the drives for Washington, the
Yeah,
second
it looks like
half,
touchdown, 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 kneel down to end the game.
yeah, that was it. So yeah, it's that's the problem. It's just, even when your opponent doesn't play a perfect game, they shoot themselves in the foot. Rutgers kind of outshot them in the foot, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I wonder if this is the most amount of yards that any team this season has accumulated and scored under 20 points. Rutgers had 493 yards of offense tonight and scored 19 points, 5 of 15 on 3rd down, 3 of 5 on 4th down. Washington had 9 penalties for 83 yards. Rutgers had 4 for 31. We have a few people who have joined us in the waiting room, so I'm going to bring on the first person first. We got Ellis Gordon joining us here.
Oh, hey
Ellis,
there. Long time
what
no
are your
see.
thoughts on
What's good,
how this
Alec?
game
What's
went?
good, Alec? What's good, guys? Yeah, I mean, I- out of like the Shiano 2.0 era, I was like too little to know Shiano 1.1.0, but like I feel like this is the most frustrating season because you see the talent. Like this team is so talented. You got Raymond breaking tackles left and right, strong. Duff, that release on that first touchdown was ridiculous for a 6'6" receiver, but they do none of the little things right. Like, and the worst part is like, last year you saw them like really in a rut, like the defense, and I think Sean after the bye week really corrected a lot of that, and they had other than the Kansas State game, which is a bowl game, they really bounced back. With their adjustments, but I feel like nothing has changed. Just special team miscues. The red zone offense is horrible. They're not taking advantage of opponents' mistakes, and like it's week after week. Like I feel like I tweet this out, but I feel like it's Groundhog Day with this team, which is the most frustrating part.
And like we all kind of knew that the way this game would have to be played out for Rutgers to win, it would have to be a track meet. I think the defense did more than enough on their end to win this game for Rutgers if the offense came through. Because if you look at the drive chart, we forced a field goal in the first drive for Washington. They missed that field goal. Then we forced a 3 and out, a 4 and out, and then in the second quarter they scored their first touchdown. But then we got that incredible fumble by Daryl Jabome. Like those 4 off defensive stands should be more than enough for Rutgers to win this game if the offense was able to convert and execute, and they just weren't. And that's been
100%.
a disturbing trend for this this offense, where it's like they get like a lot of the like empty calorie yards. Like they just can't get it done when they actually need them outside of like the first few drives of the game, which is the numbers themselves, they're going to look sexy, but when you actually watch a whole game, this offense actually isn't playing that great.
I
It's
would
great
need to
but it's just not great when you're trying to make winning plays.
I would need to rewatch it back, but I feel like the last 3 weeks, especially, like it's the same 4 play calls in the red zone, and teams are just sniffing it out. Like that RPO triple option, you always runs that in the red zone. They're sniffing that out in the red zone. The steep slant to Ian Strong or DT Sheffield, they run that. The double slant. Trying to think of others, but I just feel like it's the same plays, and
Yeah,
like
the
it's
same. Well, it
just
was the
not
same
working.
run to Raymond. I think there was one of those today where I was like, everybody in the stadium knew that play was coming.
Yeah, I just don't know
And
how you don't diversify your red zone play calling at this point. Like we're in week what? Like they've played 6 games. Like come on, like I don't know. Like something's got to change in the red zone because this team is too talented to be not scoring touchdowns in the red zone. You got a 6'6" receiver and one of the out of NFL draft receiver and Ian Strong, and then Raymond, who's a great runner. Like they can't be putting up these points in the red zone.
Can we get one pop pass to DT Sheffield? Can we do anything with him to get him the ball at full speed when he's, when the ball snapped? Like it is
we
insane
can,
that we're
but then
just.
you have to do that on a 2-point conversion when he has to throw the ball like over the
Oh
top.
my god,
Like,
that's another thing is how many points did we lose because of tip balls in the red zone today? So we lost the 2-point conversion, the the swing pass to Raymond on the 4th and 3, the 2nd and 15, where they didn't show a great angle, but it looked like from the end zone that there was 2 receivers who were wide open.
Yeah, I think so.
Just
From the
the
replay they
second to
showed.
last drive was a second down to Strong where he was at the goal line and it was like kind of a high pass. I'm not sure if that was tipped.
It looked a little weirdly wobbly on the second view of that replay, but I mean that's a play that Ian Strong makes like 9 times out of 10 too, even
Yeah.
in like ugly traffic. Tacario Davis really just made such a huge difference in this one. He was like basically running the routes
He
for
was great.
receivers. He could have had 3 or 4 picks in this game, like a Quinyon Mitchell Toledo type performance. But I, man, it's just so hard to be a fucking Rutgers fan, man.
That's what I was thinking today.
I said this in the beginning of my story. It felt eerily similar to last year's USC game in terms of just in that game, Rutgers put up 434 yards of offense and scored 20 points. Just the same things that we saw in that game crept up in this game. The same thing has crept up in the last 2 games, crept up in this game, just unable to execute situationally. And I saw a great stat from Steve Politi. I think kind of the one that I just said, and then this one kind of sums things up. In the third quarter this season against FBS competition, Rutgers has gotten outscored 45-13.
Can't happen.
That sums it up.
And there
Well,
was
also
six.
like,
You got it.
oh, I was gonna say, well, also like kind of like what you said, Mike. Like, okay, this defense didn't play good in the second half. We kind of knew that was coming, but the talent level, like, we knew the defense this year would be the thing lagging behind. But the offense has way too much talent, just way too much to be also lagging behind. You're never gonna win football games like that. So like, it's just like the third quarter, like they come out stale time after time again on both sides. But like the offense really should be the one carrying. Obviously, it's a little unfair because they got more weight on their shoulders. But look at the talent on that side of the ball; they should have more weight in the shoulders. And it's just, I just don't understand how they can't score either in the red zone or just after the second half in general.
I want to go around the room. What are your guys' percentage chances that Rutgers makes a bowl game after seeing what you saw tonight, knowing what the schedule has in front of us? I'll go first. I think it's roughly at 25% at this point. Like we need to kind of win a lot of games that we're going to be underdogs in, whether it be a small to a fairly large underdog at this point. David, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to say before you said anything, I was going to say 20.
20. Because
I was gonna
the
say
path
I was
the
gonna
path
say
is what?
15.
Like Maryland and Purdue are kind of musts, and Maryland's, looking
They
way
performed
better
way
than,
better against Washington.
yeah, and they have a legit pass rush. Like Malik Washington's going to do a lot of the same things that Damon Williams was able to do to us tonight, and Pep Hamilton is, a former, NFL OC at Maryland right now, so they have somebody who knows what they're doing, and they have a really talented guy at quarterback. Ellis, what do you think?
I was thinking 20%. I feel
20.
relatively confident they can beat Maryland and Purdue. Maryland's not gonna be easy, but just looking at that still means they need to pick off one game, and I just don't think. I mean, it would be awesome if they could beat one of Illinois, Ohio State. They're not beating Oregon, but one of Illinois, Ohio State, or Penn State. But I just don't see that. And obviously that you still have to beat Maryland, which I think I'm still relatively confident they'll beat, but like it's definitely not a gimme.
What about what's the most discouraging thing that you guys saw from tonight? If you had to point to one specific thing, obviously when you get doubled up, there's probably more than a fair share to go around of disappointing things. But Alec, how about you? What's your most disappointing thing that you saw tonight?
I mean, I think it's just the way that they're just completely stifled in the red zone, because they were moving the ball well. I mean, like you said, Sicario Davis had a great game, but they were moving the ball well otherwise. I mean, Antoine Raymond caught 6 passes. I guess maybe that's not the most discouraging thing is for me is that things legitimately look like they were changing out of the bye week, like the way that the defense came out and played. Um, One thing that I noticed with Ethan, at least for a positive, it seemed like he's really going through his reads and progressing a lot more. Maybe it's some more quick reads, things like that. We saw a lot more checkdowns to the running backs, things that we had been looking for Rutgers to kind of change, and yet they still get doubled up, and we still see the same issues. So it's just like things look like they're going different in the first half, and then the second half things just fall apart, and we see a lot of the same that we saw in the first 2 games. I guess that to sum it up, that's probably the most discouraging thing for me because what confidence does it give that they'll change things, in the second bye? Well, the second bye week's not until the last 2 games, but after this week and then moving forward. But I mean, things changed and they still got doubled up.
How about you, David?
Yeah, it's probably some combination of the offense, just overall point totals that you just got to score more points. But I think what also concerns me is the number of times the defense is even close to sniffing a turnover. Because if your defense is going to be bad and you're going to give up big plays, you got to kind of force them into throwing the ball to certain places or getting tip balls, blitzing, and it seems like they don't do any of that. And
Yeah.
that's why I kind of harp on why most teams do one of two approaches. They either play the NFL Ted Cottrell bend don't break defense, which is kind of what Washington did tonight, which is why it was effective in the defensive red zone because Rutgers was easily moving the ball between the 20s. So you either take that approach and then hope you can stop them in the red zone when things shrink, or you do what Kansas State did in the bowl game and you basically just like send everybody that's not covering someone, because basically the logic there is rather than having a linebacker guarding air, you just send them and hope that you can either get a sack, tackle for loss, or at least force them to throw the ball before they're ready. And Rutgers kind of does neither. And I've been saying that for a while, but I don't know if that's my most discouraging thing, because I haven't seen anything like that since, I don't know, 2005. Like maybe a
Yeah.
little bit in 2020.
Seems like they were like cosplaying at trying to do one of those things at different points. Like the few times they did kind of have a zero blitz, they just had somebody who was so wide open that you could have like thrown it straight up in the air, and it
Right,
was like a
right.
punt return, and he still would have caught it. There's some players on this team that I feel like, especially on defense, just should be benched. Like I can't believe that we don't have a better. I'm going to single him out right now because he's been this bad. I can't believe we don't have a better safety than Kaj Sanders, who can just at least like put a body on somebody. Like you don't necessarily have to like make every open field tackle, but like there's got to be somebody who's going to give a better effort than Kaj Sanders at this point. And there's a few guys on defense who continually make bad plays, but he is far and away like the biggest liability on this defense game after game. Ellis, is there anything that stood out to you that just really concerned? Like, what was the biggest thing for you that concerned you? You saw
I
this
mean,
game.
Alec stole my kind of idea with like playing in the margins just in stealing because everyone literally could see that. But one thing that really like a specific play that concerned me, was first play of the game on offense for them. They're backed up in their like 6 or 7, I don't remember, and they lose contain on the RPO and completely let him run for 50 yards. Like I just don't know. You had a bye week. I just don't know how that, and that's not why they lost the game because they didn't even score in that possession. But just like that one play just kind of sums up a lot. Like you had a bye week. How do you come out and allow that to happen? Like that's going to happen once in the game, but the first play of the game when they're backed up, like I just don't understand how that could possibly happen on the first defensive play of the game. So that was just kind of like, again, it didn't result in the loss, it didn't result into a score, and I overall like Alec got a spot on, but like that's kind of like a microcosm of a lot of the defensive issues.
Yeah, that was Cam Miller, I think, who blew his assignment on that. But I thought if you want to kind of piggyback that on like how the defense responded the next few
Yeah,
drives,
they were great after that.
like it felt like this was the first game that they had like a rush plan against a mobile quarterback that they actually were able to execute. Like they were able to kind of keep Demond in the first half in the pocket for the most part. There was a few designed runs where he was able to kind of get to the edge and get, 40 on one play and you got like 20 some on another. But for the most part, like they were getting a lot of like -2 yard rushes on our defense, 1 yard gains. Like I was kind of scared shitless that Coleman was going to dominate us, and he had a 15-yard run, but the other 13 rushes he had, he got 29 yards. So they did a great job of containing him, and for the most part, they were able to contain Damon Williams. It's just like you were kind of alluding to, David. Like there was just way too many times where we got to 3rd and 7, we got to 3rd and 8, and like it's almost like we didn't have a guy who knew he was supposed to be covering his man until the last second. Like they were running 3 steps ahead of our defensive backs at times. And Ellis, I'm sorry, I might have to kick you here. I didn't realize we had another person trying to come on stage, but
Have a good
appreciate
show,
you joining
guys.
us. Yep. Connor, sorry I didn't see you there, bud. How's it going? What do you
Hey,
want to
it's
talk about?
all good. I tweeted a picture at you, just the malpractice of DT Sheffield being played 11 yards off the ball the entire game, and we can't seem to just get a pop pass to him. Like it just makes absolutely zero sense that I just don't know like what they're doing there. Like I'm not even asking for them to like do like put him in motion, like give like anything like to like trick a defense. Like literally just snap the ball, have him fucking stand there. I'm sorry to curse on your show, but
No,
just
you go for it.
have him stand there, catch the ball, and let him create. Like that's what he did last year. And like obviously, like North Texas had a different game plan for him where he was a little bit more dynamic. I get that Kirk isn't going to go there, but there has to be something you can do when they're playing a safety 12 yards off the ball on him the entire game.
That's
I
what
thought it was
Mike said in our
something.
group chat. You're not the first
Yeah.
person to say that. Go ahead, Alec.
Yeah,
I
like
also thought it was even
like
something
there
that
were
Minnesota
plays.
or sorry, Mike.
Yeah, so just real quick on that. There were some plays where they did have like a linebacker shading that kind of was like playing that cloud, but half the time they weren't even like they were like running like in my opinion, and I'm not like the biggest ball knower or not a football coach, but like if you see that alignment, there should be some kind of like audible or read that you can like, signal to like Jalen Hurts did it in the Super Bowl a few times where he did like the finger guns, and that meant like AJ, was gonna run a post along the sideline. Like, why do we not have that kind of same concept when we have those 12-yard like a safety playing 12 yards off DT where he's just running a post at that point?
Well, what you just said, Mike, actually worked pretty well in what I was gonna say. Look back 2 weeks ago at Minnesota, it looked like, at least from my vantage point, and again, same as Mike, not exactly the biggest, X's and O's guy here, but we see, I think it was Jacoby Henderson they're lined up on I get it's a slot versus an outside receiver, so it's different, but still, Jacoby Henderson's lined up on the goal line from the when the receiver's at the 8-yard line. I believe Lindsey just, like, checked into a simple screen where he takes a snap, takes a simple one-step drop, fires it over at him, and then you got him, the DB kinda has to come up to him, and then DT Sheffield has the advantage where he can use his agility in space and just get past the guy. It feels like, yeah, that should be an option to check into, maybe not all the time and not like the design read, but even just, like, at least once or twice if you need, a quick few yards.
Yeah, it seemed like Ethan did a really good job early on checking us into the right plays, but that kind of like I don't know if he's like specifically told in these first 15 plays that they script out like if you get this look, we're going to this play. If you get this look, we're gonna, run the draw. But like after the first 3 or 4 drives of the game, they were just kind of I don't know. It just felt a little bit less like he was, he had sometimes it's like he's got the actual steering wheel of the car, and the other times he's sitting in the passenger seat with his little, play school steering wheel where, he thinks he's making decisions, but he's not actually changing anything or doing anything. Um, I don't know. It's just like so hard to continually like see these same issues popping up, and like I had so much optimism that coming out of this bye there would just be like materially different approaches to winning football games, but there was I tweeted this out, but we had 6 drives that ended inside the Washington 27-yard line. So we had a drive end at the 27, the 19, the 17, the 6, the 4, and the 2 of Washington's territory. And of those 6 drives, we combined for 6 points.
I was actually gonna bring this up. I have it written down in my notes here. What happened to like that goal line pick play that we used to run that Gavin Wimsatt would throw a pick six on almost every single time to Christian Dremel? Like I feel like we have the quarterback and we have the playmakers to actually run that play effectively. Like we used to spam that play inside the 5-yard line. And now it's just completely out of the playbook.
Well, they
Yeah, I think that
ran
was
a variant of that to Raymond that was tipped, where that was the only time I remember it happening today. But I do agree with you that that play puts defenses into conflict, and a lot of times they roll their coverage to that side, which in theory should open things up.
I'm also pretty.
yeah,
I think that was the play that we ran last year against Minnesota with Ian Strong, like that last touchdown of the game where he kind of came across the middle and caught that touchdown. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just so many concerning things. I do have 2 potentially positive things I wanted to hit on because I like to try to find a little bit of sunlight in these games because it's all I can do. I thought that containing Jonah Coleman was way bigger of a task, and I was surprised to see they only had 44 yards rushing in this game, which I thought was good. And I also thought that Jordan Thompson was way improved at D tackle. Obviously he's playing at a position there due to injuries, but I thought that he was way more improved on the interior of the defensive line today.
and I know that the staff had big plans for a guy like Doug Blue Eli. How David, how important is like a gap penetrating defensive tackle who can, actually put pressure up the middle? And how important is that to kind of making an entire defense be like solvent, I guess?
I think it depends on what you're trying to do in your defensive scheme. I mean, if you saw Washington today, they did a really good job of maintaining their gap assignments, and they were kind of trying to just get in there and then sit down, and that's usually how you uh, can kind of prevent a lot of those Antoine Raymond runs. I think they only had 3 tackles for a loss. I'll keep me honest with that, but I think there was very few tackles for a loss because they were kind of just like fighting pressure and sitting there.
Yep.
But
They only had
if
3.
you run a scheme where you need explosive defensive linemen to penetrate the gap and then force the action in a certain way, then yes, it's very, very critical. Now, reading some of the things that they've said, it's unclear to me if Doug Blue Eli was such a key part of their defense that they've basically changed what they're doing in that regard. I think that would be overblowing it, but they've kind of made comments hinting at like he's a quote big part of our defense, which to me either means A, you're going to use him both as a D tackle as well as a D end in certain situations, or B, you're going to use him as try to like not necessarily that Julius Turner cock nose guy, but in some way to try to compromise what offenses are doing in the middle because they really don't do anything to like they try to stunt a little bit and it didn't have a lot of success. They don't necessarily try to outsmart the offensive line. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's a big loss because I do think, like we talk about with their defensive line, there's really nobody who's kind of a plus defender against the run and the pass. I mean, you gave the example of Thompson. He's probably a plus defender against the run, especially at end, but he's not really against the pass. And Blue Eli to me was the one guy I saw that I'm like, okay, maybe this guy could be plus against both. Whereas last year they had Keontae Hamilton who could be that in multiple places along the line. And otherwise, it's just they don't have as many options on the defensive line, and they don't run a lot of like blitzes or things to like make it easier for those guys. And I think maybe they didn't think they were going to have to if they were expecting Blue Liga to play like 70% of the snaps, and offense are going to have to account for him. So I know it was a long-winded answer to your question, but I don't see Rutgers playing in a way that matters as much. But I could see a scenario where if they had him, they might do that. Not quite to the level of losing Mo Toure preseason last year, because obviously that they just took packages completely out of the playbook. But
Yep.
I don't think this is how they want to play on defense, but they don't have the personnel on the line to do it that way. They're kind of forced to be like, what's the best thing we have? We have Eric O'Neill as a fast, undersized pass rusher. So that's the way we're going to try to operate. But to the point about Jordan Thompson, like, yeah, he's a piece you can try to use in a couple different ways. And that was nice to see them try to do that tonight. Even though it was one play where it looked like he was in like a zone blitz. And I know he had that pick against Maryland last year, but like it was either Williams or someone came running at him. Like, there's no way he's going to stop this guy on the open field. I mean, I love Thompson, but like he's kind of short and like not the type of guy who's going to make an open field tackle.
And I say this knowing it's an apples to oranges comparison, but do you think the struggles on defense, and if we're, we could play the blame pie game here, do you think it's more the scheme they're trying to run with the personnel, or the personnel wouldn't be really good in any scheme? And I mentioned, the comparison to, UCLA looked totally inept to do anything offensively in the first 4 games. They were 0-2 against the Mountain West. And then they changed play callers, and in a 5-day span, they went from not being able to do anything. It couldn't, walk and chew gum. And suddenly now they're able to score 40 points on, what is supposed to be a vaunted Penn State defense. So I put that comparison knowing it's not a full 1-to-1, but what's kind of like your read on if it's more personnel, if it's more scheme, or if it's more trying to fit square pegs in round holes?
You asking me first?
Yeah, I'm asking you first.
I think it's more the old adage: if you're not going to be good, be big. If you're not going to be big, be fast. And they're none of those. So that if you're not going to do that, then you either have to really know your assignments, which clearly they don't always, or you need to you need to do what I said. You need to just basically go prevent, the equivalent of basically playing a basketball 2-3 zone, and just be like, all right, well, we're willing to concede plays underneath, but we think we have more guys in the back. Or you just send a lot of guys and be like, well, if we're going to give up a 50-yard run, we'd rather do that with a chance of making a big play rather than just, to our guest's point, just the QB just running around. Like, if you're going to give it away anyway, I know that's easier said than done because, maybe he gets a touchdown on that instead of 42 yards or whatever it was. But I just think that if your defense is not good, you have to dictate terms like they did against Washington last year when they were undermanned. I mean, they the best way to describe it is like they were giving Washington looks like you were mentioning with DT Sheffield, where Rutgers like, here, we dare you to throw it to the slot guy. And Washington last year, Will Rogers was quarterbacking mostly, was like, all right, my automatic check is to just throw it to that guy. And then, okay, here we go. We know he's going to get at least 5 yards, but then there's like a potential for impact. Guys are swarming the ball. And like, you're at least even if you're not the quote aggressor, then at least you're dictating some terms. It just doesn't feel, and obviously it'll be better on the rewatch, but it doesn't feel like they're dictating terms at all. So whereas like look at Minnesota's defense. I know Shannon was saying they're number one defense in the country. Rutgers could do mostly what they wanted on offense when they weren't like shooting themselves in the foot. But what Minnesota does is what Rutgers used to do, which is they either sit back in that zone or they bring people. But regardless, they are making you make a decision about offensively, like what you're going to do. Whereas this feels too much like that Chris Ash read and react defense, which only works when you have the personnel, and they don't have it. So I think it's a little bit of both, but I think there's things that other teams do that, in theory, Rutgers should be able to do on the defensive side. If you don't have the 4, meat eaters on the line that are just going to blitz and or not blitz, but just get pressure with 4, stop the run, you don't have that. So you have to try something else. And it felt like Shannon talked about that in the offseason as to something they were willing to do. But I don't know if that's the players don't know their assignments well enough or not. Because like when you compare Rutgers to Iowa, right? Iowa defensive players know what they're doing in those situations. They know where they need to be and all that sort of stuff. And they still couldn't stop the Rutgers offense without holding. So it doesn't necessarily always work, but it just feels like Rutgers defense is so early in their like walking or crawling before you walk, before you run, that these things that's why I think you need to just go high school style.
Alec, how about you? What's
As I
your
woke
kind of
up
read
our
on?
other guest here.
Oh,
Also, the Mariners just won in the 15th inning. That game is finally over. That's what I've been watching for the past like 20 minutes. But anyways, I mean, I feel like when you talk scheme, it also comes with the territory of the coaching with this coaching staff. So it is tough, but I do agree with David. It's like how much can you do with the scheme without the personnel? So it's it's tough. So sorry, I'm not fully on my game tonight. I've spent the last like 6 hours looking at my computer. I'm kind of fried. So um, yeah, I mean, I'm with David though. It's tough, and like I said, you kind of have to factor in the scheme with the coaching, which obviously is not where it needs to be with this unit.
yeah. No, it's just it feels like they thought. First off, we all kind of know that like Rob Smith was not like the first choice for defensive coordinator, and we kind of all know how that ended. We know how it ended at Arkansas and Minnesota. Like he's just a below average play caller that I think Shiano thought maybe because they had better personnel on defense than last year that maybe they could kind of like run a lot of his base vanilla stuff and a lot of cover 3, cover 4, keep everything in front of them and win games on the back of the offense and get a few stops on defense. But I think maybe they overestimated the offense's ability to kind of finish drives, and they underestimated how porous this defense would be in this scheme. And I think we're just trying to kind of be a jack of all trades and a master of none in a lot of areas of this team. And we just kind of got to pick an identity and run with it and just try and do something well. Like you and David were alluding to, like, it's better to just be really good at one thing than average or below average at everything. And on defense, that's kind of what it feels like. And I think early on, like, I think we did kind of dictate terms to Washington. Like, there were a few plays where, we would rush a guy off the right edge and force Damon Williams to scramble out to the left and kind of shade coverage over there, knowing that, that's where they wanted him to go. And the few times we did that, like, they weren't really able to do anything because we were able to maintain, lane integrity when we were rushing. We were able to kind of not allow like a clear like missed tackle, and we were able to kind of play well enough in coverage where there was just nothing we can do. It was just kind of like a win, like a play calling win. But for the most part, like, I don't know, you kind of have to take educated risks with every play call, and you got to kind of know what your personnel is good at and what they're bad at. And if you've seen a guy like Damon Williams, rip several big runs because we missed a tackle, or I don't know. I think we kind of lost the plot on defense as the game went on. But let's just like say that let's just like think of a hypothetical scenario, right? Where instead of Rutgers being up 13-10 at halftime, Rutgers is able to capitalize on those early opportunities when they got deep into Washington territory. Let's say they're up 23-10, we'll even say. Let's say that Washington is able to kind of get that late field goal where they just march down the field in 40 seconds with one timeout. Like, the way that you can call plays on offense and the way that you can play defense is so much different when you're up by 13 points than when you're up by 3 points, because Washington immediately goes and scores a quick score right out of halftime. If they even do that, Rutgers is still up in our hypothetical scenario by 6. They probably run the ball, try and eat clock. Maybe they have more success when they're not pressing the entire second half, because before you knew it, like, we were down 23-10 or 23-13 or 24-13. I'm sorry. So we're down by 11 points with like 10 minutes left in the third quarter. So that totally flips its head. And now Rutgers is pressing the rest of the second half. So it's just, when you kind of take advantage, and you never know, like, maybe because if you get to a point where you're kind of like scoring on every opportunity you have as an offense, like, it's demoralizing for the other team. It makes them get into situations mentally that they don't want to, that they know they kind of have to, execute when they have their opportunities. And we never really pressed them mentally in this game. They were always kind of allowed to stick around in the first half, and like, we got a 10-point lead. It should have been a 13-point lead. We missed a field goal, and like, we just kind of let them off the hook, and they never had to really get to the point mentally where they were strained. I don't know. I'm kind of meandering on here, waiting for Greg Schiano's presser to post.
I mean, it's 1:15. There's not much else to do.
Yeah. But I forgot we should have been paying attention to the chat here. P Mata Poisset once again with the
Once again,
donation.
please correct us if we're saying it wrong. I'm gonna assume that
Yeah.
we're not, because you haven't yet, but please correct us if we're saying it wrong.
And thank you for the donation again, man. You said thank you for the show and staying up late. Still early enough out here in the desert in the Southwest. Hopeful for an unexpected bowl bid. Things are looking pretty bleak right now. Yeah, FBI, I can post that. That's the link if anyone would like to join. Yeah, it's looking pretty bleak. Rutgers would probably have to be Maryland, which is no small task. Rutgers might be an underdog at home against Maryland at this point. They're going to have to beat Purdue, who's beatable on the road. But at the same time, Purdue is not going to just roll over this year. I think they're actually a pretty decent team. And then you're going to have to beat Illinois on the road, who is playing very well right now. You know, the Indiana game certainly put a lot of cold water on their season, but they're clearly well coached. They have a lot of senior leadership. They won the following week against a really tough opponent in USC. And it's either you have to win those two first games and then you have to beat either Illinois or you have to beat Penn State, because that's kind of where we're at this point in the schedule. I don't know if you saw FBI, but I posted the link to join the show if you wanted in the chat. We're going to scroll through and see if there's any topics in here. Alec, feel free to highlight anything you see that we haven't touched on. That was bad hosting on our part to not monitor the chat here.
Not a whole lot that I've noticed, kind of just similar stuff that we've been kind of, I guess, talking about and things like that. Just kind of scrolling through. I saw one from about like 15 minutes ago. Where's Rutgers ranking NIL money? I mean, it seems like it's around middle of the pack in the Big Ten, if not, the bottom of the middle, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. It's not great. I mean, you're never going to compete with the big dogs, but it's not the worst in the conference. I don't think. At least that's what my impression is.
We have a new guest here. It's Caden. What's going on, Caden?
I mean, again, we already talked about this, but it's just disappointing to see an offense this good be paired with a defense this bad. I mean, I'm still young, so maybe I can get out of this Rutgers fan stuff, but I mean, it's pretty painful. Not like Friday night. I mean, I don't have a football game to go to since away. Turn this one on, and it's just painful whole way through. But I don't really know. I just was looking forward to this season. Thought things were gonna get a lot better. I mean, and you can only say so much about how good Ian Strong is and how good KJ Duff is, but when you get down to it, I mean, they can only do so much, and this defense is just it's hard to watch. Some of the some of these safeties, it looks like they're running around with sand on their cleats. I mean, it's just hard to watch. I mean, and honestly, I think when Greg gets to having to coach against a mobile quarterback, I don't know if he just forgets that it's not 1980 anymore or what, but we just seem to not do anything about them at all.
Yeah, I think his math on defense just doesn't typically account for it, and we don't have the kind of athlete to be an effective spy against Damon Williams or even a guy like Parker Navarro or Daquan Finn, who while they're not the latter two aren't the same level of athlete that Damon Williams is, they're still guys who just are very high football IQ types who are experienced and kind of know their limits and how long they can extend a play for or what to look for, with an edge crashing, when they could run. They're just the type of player who typically make the right decisions and
Mm-hmm. And we
your
just pay
defense needs
for
to
it
be
often.
defense needs to be just as disciplined as those guys are good decision makers, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
not.
I mean, I think Ethan got better in the second half. His first half, there was a couple times when I think he just missed. I mean, I forget that corner's name, but he could have had a couple interceptions today. But
Takario Davis was
yeah,
really good today.
He's gonna get drafted somewhere high. Anyway, but he got better in the second half, but a lot of those numbers are empty. I think he ended with 390 passing yards, but he dropped back 38 times today, and
he had 50 pass attempts today.
50 pass attempts, even more than I thought. I mean, But I mean, obviously, about 10 of those were garbage time after they
Yeah.
scored that last touchdown. Yeah, but I mean, we just couldn't keep up. I mean, sometimes even like you just can't keep the gas on the like like you know what I mean. Like, you can't keep your
Yeah,
foot
yeah.
on the gas the whole time. You got to get something. And the defense, they were like the pass rush looked good in the first half. I mean, we had what 3 sacks, and then it just I don't know. Like we just don't adjust as a team. It's like it's hard to watch sometimes. Like we come out, we do good in the first half on one aspect, and then we come out flat footed to start the second half. They adjust, we don't. I mean, Ohio is a pretty good example of that, where
Yeah.
we had that massive lead, but
Yeah, to go up. I mean, they almost had the same thing happen that happened in Ohio, where Rutgers had a 17-point lead against Ohio heading into the end of the second quarter. Ohio scores a touchdown at the end of the first half. Then they get the ball back at the start of the second half. They score a touchdown.
mm,
That's just that like middle eight section. Thank God Daryl Jabome was able to strip Damon Williams, because that was setting up to be another replica, like you're kind of alluding to, where they were about to score a touchdown and get the ball back at the start of the second half, and you saw what they did. Just melted our defense like a hot knife through butter. Um, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
it's tough,
yeah,
man.
and then I don't know what it is, but like Ethan, when he like runs the ball, like it just like he's 6'3", what like 220. I feel like he should like be more confident with it, but like he just is looking on how can I dive and fall over here. And I get that like you don't want to obviously you don't want to take a massive hit from a linebacker or safety and drop the ball if you don't have to. But I'd like to see him, you know, just like run with a little bit of confidence, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he went down pretty quickly, and I'm sure that the coaches, knowing the way that they drill in, like not taking risks or anything like that, tell him to
Yeah.
slide.
I
Or
mean, it's like I mean, I just think I see it a lot. It's definitely something that they coach, and we sacrifice a little bit of rack, like with some of our guys, but we do keep the ball, which is nice,
yep,
definitely. But it's not like we're generating a lot of turnovers, except for like, well, Daryl's obviously an exception, but we're not taking the ball away a whole lot.
yeah, I think we have 3 or 4 turnovers now in the entire season.
Yeah, but I remember Bo. He intercepted Navarro once, and then this one. I don't
Jet
remember the
Jet
other one.
Elad had an interception
Mhm.
against Miami of Ohio, or
Probably
maybe
the easiest
no, this is
interception of
Norfolk.
his
Sorry,
life.
yeah, that it was like a punt return basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, we're not going to beat Oregon, and it's. I mean, even though Drew Aller is terrible, like he's terrible at football, and but we're not probably not beating Penn State. Their roster's too good. It's just we're gonna have to get an upset if we want to go bowling, but it would just really suck if we didn't, because this is obviously the most talented offensive roster we've had in a long time, and just to see it wasted on a defense this bad, which I do think it's young and it will improve next year. But the offense, like obviously, I don't see Ian Strong sliding past pick 50. Um, I, I mean, maybe I don't know. That might be ridiculous, but
no,
we're
I
losing a
think
lot of
it's
people.
right around where you should go. I think based on what we talked to Trevor
Yeah.
Sikkema last week, the PFF's lead draft analyst, and he said he's a top 75 guy. And then on his top 50, he had him at 44. PFF's
Mhm.
big board has him at 46. So
Yeah,
I think that's right around where you should go.
he's worth it, but I mean, he could be real. He could be a first rounder, but the reason he's not is because he's not going to go to the combine and run a 4.35. He's going to go run a
Yeah.
4.46 or something, you know. So they're not. They're going. He's not going to be the fastest guy there. So that's why he'll fall a little bit. But I mean, is Greg? Are we still waiting on him?
Yeah, I don't
Mm,
know. I haven't seen it posted, so I don't know if we're
we'll
gonna have
see.
that as part of the show tonight. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he like. The thing is, you can't really tell how involved head coaches are with like defensive play calling. Like, I mean, if Greg's not already heavily involved, he should be because I mean, well, you did say the loss of that our D tackle may have hurt the playbook a lot, but either way, I mean, we're running like high school defensive concepts out there.
Yeah, it's tough to watch on defense for sure. We got another person waiting to hop
Yeah,
on here, Caden.
yeah.
Thanks for
I'm
joining,
out
man.
of things to say anyway. All right, thanks.
All right, see you, man. All right, Craig Epstein's joining us.
Look who decided to join.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on how the game went?
Just pretty much felt like it's pretty much similar scripts to the last few weeks where it's just they get off to a hot start, feels like this team, might win, and then as the game wears on, it just gets worse and worse. I mean, the defense actually got off to a good start this week, and the offense, they could have really put their foot on their throat, really. They were up 10-0, and then they got the ball back with like good field position, could have potentially gone up 17-0, take a 3-score lead early on. The Washington fans were all the few that were there, the ones that weren't over in Seattle watching the Mariners. The ones that were there were kind of giving a little bit of boo birds just because of the slow start the Huskies had. But it just you took your foot off their throat, and they just immediately answered back. And like I said, the defense, it's like when they start the game off hot like they did, they basically have to cash in because as we've seen, it's like it's not going to last. So as the game wore on, they couldn't stop the Washington quarterback. They couldn't stop anything really. And then I just don't understand what goes on in the third quarter for this team. How they come out of halftime every single week. I know I saw the same stat as you did, Alec, with the Polity stat that it's just the third quarter is just they just fall off a cliff, and then the fourth quarter they basically spend trying to dig themselves out of that hole. But it's over, and I just don't get how a Greg Schiano coach team is just like comes out of the halftime just so flat.
Yeah, no, it's not inspiring. I thought that they played hard today. At least you can't say that there was a lack of effort. It's just like, you could be the hardest working person in the room, but if you're trying to dig through cement with a pickaxe, there's just you could swing it as hard as you want and you're never going to get through the cement floor, whereas the laziest guy in the room could spend 2 minutes with the jackhammer and get right through the floor. So I don't know if that's a great comparison, but
and outside of other than the Miami of Ohio game and the Norfolk State game, every game they've given up at least 30 points. I mean,
yeah,
it's every game. I don't know how you can win that way, honestly. Like the offense can't be perfect, and as we've seen, it's honestly probably getting worse week after week. Where it's just amazing to me that they have basically three superstar. They have three Bolitnikov caliber wide receivers. They got Antoine Raymond, who's pretty much a super. To me, is I don't know, maybe superstar is too strong a word, but he's a pretty damn good running back. And you got Ethan, who's he's good quarterback, not great, but he's good. Like you have basically all the ingredients to have a great offense, but they go through just these spurts of just nothing. Like again, I don't understand how these third quarters they're just doing nothing. It's just crazy to me. Like we were begging for years. It feels like we were begging for like one superstar receiver. They got at least two, if not three, and it's still not. It's just aggravating. It's just like stuff that we've begged for years for, we finally got, and they still are underperforming. And that they're probably, and like I said, this was pretty much now the bowl eligibility chances are just like you talked about. I mean, if you can beat Purdue and you can beat Maryland, okay, there's 5. Where's the 6 coming from? Illinois? I mean, it's going to be tough to beat Illinois in Illinois. You ain't going to beat Oregon. You ain't going to beat Ohio State. Penn State, who the hell knows, I guess, because we saw them lose to UCLA. So, I mean, that would be nice. But again, it's just like pretty much all their chances, it feels like, have pretty much dried up because they really, the Iowa game felt like, okay, that would be like a statement type of win where it's like win a primetime game against an Iowa team at home and Friday Night Lights. Like, okay, they lost that one. But then it's like these last 2 games, Minnesota and Maryland, those were your chances to get to finish the season with 6 or 7 wins. You lose both, and now it's like, I don't know. At this point, like you said, a 25% chance of eligibility, 20. I mean, it's like, it's just crazy that a season where we came in saying this could be like the best offense we've ever seen here, and they're might not even reach bowl eligibility.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that on our preseason extravaganza, I think it was both David and Aaron predicted this pretty much this exact same record, 3-3 to start, I believe. I don't remember; it might have been I forget, but either way, this wasn't for them at least. This wasn't the totally unexpected start, and it's just the way that things have gone down is the reason for so much pessimism. Like we knew that this defense was going to be a work in progress. To take a line from Greg Schiano that he said over and over, we knew the defense was going to be a work in progress. We knew the offense was going to be the strength of the team, but what we did not expect is the execution issues, the lack of conversion in situational spots and key spots, and honestly, the defense being worse than we thought. That all that has really been worse than we thought, and that's why even if the record may not be 3-3, 0-3, and the Big Ten is not a great record, but it's also not that bad either. You know, that's the reason there's so much pessimism with that, because of the way that they've looked. Like, if even on the eye test, you can tell things are not going right, execution-wise. I mean, you have a 19-play drive that lasts, like, 6 minutes, and you score no points, and you have a 13-play drive that, lasts probably around the same time, and that scores no points as well. It's just we've been talking about this a lot already on this show, but it's just the execution, the situational moments, has been lacking, and, it's frustrating. I think I said this on the Minnesota postgame show. You can only preach developmental program, we'll get there, all of those things that, in a vacuum are fine things to say, but you can only preach those so many times with the product that you see on the field with the execution issues.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, the Bill, what's the Bill Parcells saying? It's like, you are what your record says you are. Like, and you look at how we've performed against teams that either were relatively close to talent wise, or if we're just looking at like point spreads, if you want to do it that way, like when Rutgers plays games that are roughly equal in terms of talent, and maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, they continually underperform, and we continually do not make winning plays. And until proven otherwise, we're just a losing program. Like, we win again, we go 3-0 against, little sisters of the poor in the out of conference, and Greg wants to keep going against 3 powder puffs, which is fine. I don't care that we're, playing shitty teams in the out of conference to get 3 easy wins because you play in the Big Ten. I get it. But like, with the 18 team conference, like, there's going to be 2 stinkers each year in the conference. And if you don't get scheduled either of those stinkers, you're in for a bad time, which is what Rutgers is at. Like, we are roughly equal with like everybody, but maybe 1 or 2 teams in the conference right now in terms of talent. And sorry, roughly equal, or the teams are better than us, I should say. And Rutgers just has not shown the propensity to beat those teams. Washington last year, we basically like did everything we could to set them up to win that game, and Washington just kind of outdid us in terms of messing up. And then I think the only game you could really point to that Rutgers kind of rose to the moment the last few years was the Minnesota game last year, when they won and they were an underdog at home, and the team looked like it had fallen apart. And I think a lot of people were expecting maybe something that resembled that tonight. And for a little while we did see that. But until the offense can, convert in, gotta have it, high profile or high pressure situations. And, because if you look back at how the season has gone, we converted that 4th and 7 against Ohio, that if we don't get it, we probably lose to Ohio game 1. So that was probably the biggest conversion in terms of pressure the team has made all season. But, we have an opportunity to march down the field against Iowa late in the 4th quarter with the ball in our hands to go ahead. We blow that. Against Minnesota, we have multiple chances with the ball in the fourth quarter. One of those opportunities with the lead, can't convert there. Tonight, countless times where we're deep in Washington territory, and if we would have scored, the game goes a lot differently. We couldn't do anything there. We're a bad team. And this 3-3 record looks fine right now, but we are a bad team. And it's a sum of the parts that it's just there's too many things that we do poorly, and it's kind of inexcusable for a Greg Schiano led team to be this bad in this many areas. And I gotta think, like, because there's so many things that are attention to detail or discipline related things, I just think that he doesn't have the right coaches in a lot of places to could get things done. Because I think we all have seen, like, Schiano has a track record long enough where he's shown a repeatable process for, his special teams have usually been pretty good. His defenses have usually been pretty good. But I think the coaches that are in place and the personnel that is in place just isn't working. So where does this go the rest of the season? Do we see a youth movement? Do we see maybe some coaches get reassigned? I don't know. But I think we've kind of got to give up on this construction of the team right now because it's clearly not working. It's clearly not getting better. It's clearly, like, sometimes you just got to let things play out, like get our lumps, allow the process to kind of work. But this is not a process that's going to work. Like, you can't just have this many explosive plays. Like, how many quarterbacks this year have had like a career game against us? We got 2 in a row right now between Damon Williams and between Drake Lindsay. Parker Navarro had one of the best games of his career against us, Ohio. Mark Gronowski had his best game as an Iowa starting quarterback, at least, when Iowa played us. Like, is every offense just going to have their best output of the season against us? Like, if that's the case, we're not going to win any more games. So, I don't know. That was a long monologue. I wish that Greg's presser would show up and we could talk about it, but I don't think that's going to happen. So let's just do final thoughts. Alec, final thoughts on this game moving forward. How do you feel?
I don't know how they're going to turn it around, but I feel like I've said this after all 3 losses now. They have to find a way somehow. I mean, you have Oregon up next. I think we know which direction that's going to go, but you have to find a way to get yourself off the mat for Purdue, then Illinois, then Maryland. Those 2 games are on the road too, so you're not going to have the home crowd, at least for a game that you have a good chance of winning, until for another month. So they have to find a way to get themselves off the mat. Are we going to see things change in terms of personnel and stuff like that? Maybe, not in a big way. We saw some guys rotate in on the defensive line, some of the younger guys. So I think we'll start to see that a little bit just to kind of see if something works. I don't think we'll see too much like wholesale change or anything like that. Like, I've seen some people in the comments just to put Cerise in for the rest of the season. I don't think that's going to happen. At least while I think Alec is healthy and able to play quarterback, he will play quarterback. I just don't see that happening. But I mean, something's got to change. And even when we saw things change tonight, it just kind of went back to the same. So there needs to be something, whether it's a philosophy change, which I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Some kind of personnel change, which I don't think we'll see on that wide of a scale. Something needs to change, and I know that's not a very that's not a very what's the word I'm looking for? In-depth answer. That something needs to change, but that's all it boils down to. I mean, things were going well, and they weren't, and that's been the theme of the last 3 games. So they have to figure something out. In terms of the defense, the third quarter in particular, something's got to change. So we'll see if they can make that happen for homecoming next week against probably the best offense in the country.
Yeah. At this
Closing
point,
thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, I was saying at this point, I think the path forward to, if you want to get to bowl eligibility, is Maryland, Purdue, and Illinois. Because at this point, you're probably not beating Oregon because, like you said, it's best offense in the country. I mean, not many teams can beat Oregon. Ohio State, it's same deal. I mean, Ohio State might be going back to back the way they're playing. They could win another national championship. And then I guess the only thing you can hope for is maybe at the end of the year, if it's Ohio State or Penn State or something, that they got a spot locked up somewhere and they're not playing for anything. Maybe they rest their guys and Rutgers can get kind of an easy win there. But that doesn't seem to really happen that much. So at this point, yeah, I think they've pretty much exhausted all of their kind of toss-up games to get to bowl eligibility, and they're going to have to pick off at least one team that they're going to be probably heavy underdogs against. So that's kind of my feelings there. And it's just about, it feels like all season long is just about, we were just like, just play, if they can play their firepower offense and just play average defense, then they'll be fine. But it just seems like they can't do that. And for them to they play 4 full quarters, they can't, they just haven't, it feels like they haven't done it really that much, if at all season long. So it's just tough. Like, I just honestly don't know. And to me, 4-8 or 5-7 might be on the table, and sucks considering we went into this season thinking this could be, one of the better teams we've seen here in a long time. And the fact that they might not play a bowl game in December or January just like stinks. And it's just like, and I hate to bring it back, but coming off of the basketball season that we just had and going into what looks like might be the basketball season we're going to have, it just feels like kind of a merry-go-round of disappointment right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of in Kelly Zinn's first off season as the head of the athletic department, if any kind of big changes are made where it's, there's a lot more in terms of NIL available to the football program, or if I don't know, like the money has always been there for coaches when Greg Schiano's needed it, whether it be like, if you look at what our coordinators were paid last year, Kirk Sirocco was a top 5 paid assistant in college football. Joe Harris-Simiak wasn't far behind him. Both of our coordinators were getting paid, $1.5 and $1.9 million. They fired Sean Gleason when he still had a year left on his deal mid-season a few years ago, and he had $1 million left on his contract. So the money's there for coaches. It's more of, why can't Greg get those coaches to the banks? And getting players is a different thing, which is kind of why I led with that. Because I think we all kind of agree that Kelly Zinn knows what she's doing and is pretty effective and has the pelts on the wall to show she, has been around what success looks like in modern college athletics. So I think she knows the levers to pull, and she'll give the resources needed to the program. And it's about Schiano identifying the right players for his scheme in the offseason to make 2026 a better outcome than what 2025 has been so far. But that's all I got. We've gone an hour and 7 minutes here. We've got several hundred people still watching. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. I wish this could have been a more joyous post-game show. These post-games after a loss are pretty tough to kind of stomach, and appreciate everybody who hopped on and the guests that we've had. And let's do it again next week for another, what should be not fun post-game show, but we'll see how it goes, I guess. But at least it's homecoming. It'll be fun to see some old friends and new friends. But for me and Alec and Craig, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast, post-game live show. Thanks for everybody for joining, but we will see you next time. Peace.